Hello everyone, my name is Will, and welcome to the first episode of the Will to Live initiative. This is a new podcast where I will be discussing ongoing, unlawful, non-consensual experiments on innocent men and women in the United States and possibly abroad. I am one of those people victimized by the atrocity that I'll be speaking about. And now I am working hard to restore justice by sharing evidence and information in hopes of prompting a proper investigation. Join me in my fight and help raise awareness by tuning in and sharing this podcast with your friends and family. So what are we talking about? Well, before we start, I want to throw a couple of disclaimers out there. The first one is regarding production value. Now, under normal circumstances, I'd be able to churn out a pretty decent podcast production, with some nice little bells and whistles to it. But due to the circumstances that I'm dealing with now, this is going to be a bare bones podcast where, the information is going to be the centerpiece, as it should be with any production, but, you're not going to get a lot of bells and whistles out of this. So, just bear with me. The second thing is, sometimes I may start to ramble a bit. I may go into a mode where I may start to give some analogies, or some metaphors and kind of trail off, but I always come back on topic. So you'll be able to glean some nuggets out of that, hopefully. I'm just letting you know in advance to stick with me. And last but definitely not least, I ask that you be slow to judge. This is a complex puzzle with a lot of moving parts to it, and you have to understand the parts in order to see the whole big picture. So I just ask that you weigh the evidence for yourself, think, and be fair. And if you do that, then I think everything will be all right. How is this different from the hundreds of other videos and articles on the topic? Well, this is going to be more accurate. It's going to have more accurate information and more detail and more examples. You hear these stories about Havana syndrome and all of that stuff, and a lot of it's vague, and there's a lot of misinformation that's thrown out there too, and we'll get into that. But this podcast is going to have better evidence, more accurate information, and we're going to stay on topic. Okay. Directed energy weapons. Now, you may have heard of this on the news within the past few years, along with Havana syndrome and anomalous health incidents. It has been reported that U.S. diplomats and CIA agents, along with FBI agents and other U.S. government personnel, have experienced mysterious illnesses while stationed in Cuba, Moscow, and other U.S. embassies across the world. These illnesses resulted in what has been diagnosed as traumatic brain injuries caused by electromagnetic waves absorbed by the brain from some unknown source. Supposedly, there were sounds similar to crickets that accompanied the incidents and seemed associated with what was happening. These incidents have been named Havana syndrome after Havana, Cuba, where one of the first incidents was reported. The official term, according to a scientific report, is anomalous health incidents. Up until this point, the mainstream media has only reported on these incidents affecting U.S. government personnel like diplomats and CIA agents and FBI agents, like I said before, but no mention of whether or not civilians have been affected. They haven't said they have, they haven't said they haven't. There's just no mention of civilian casualties at all. Now, this is not to say that there aren't civilian casualties, just that there isn't any mention of them in news reports, in official reports. Which brings me to the purpose of this podcast. There are civilian casualties. I'm one of them. Our experience with directed energy weapons is much worse and much more complex than what you hear reported in the news regarding Havana syndrome. The torturous, highly coordinated manner in which this is executed leads me to believe that this is an experiment or field study on the effects of weaponized electromagnetic energy on the human body. Now, like I said before, there are a lot of moving parts. When I talk to people about this, I've had certain people say, well, send me some information on it. Okay, people have asked me to send links with info on it. But there's not one place that will give you a complete and accurate explanation for everything that's happening. There's no one website I can point you to that says, hey, this is what's going on. And because of the manner in which this is being done, you don't expect, any university or U.S. government agency to have a website that says, this is our secret experiment and this is how we're doing it. Look at these videos of how we're secretly torturing people. That's not how it works. They're going to do everything, in fact, to make sure that there is no information that can be discovered. Everything I've learned about it, I've had to gather through my own experience in interpreting that experience, my own investigation, and then gather info from here and there to help piece it all together and explain it. I've had to learn a lot about microwave energy, infrasound, the electromagnetic spectrum, directed energy weapons, lethal autonomous weapon systems, and how these energies affect the body and the mind. Learning from science journals, videos on YouTube, articles, websites, social media, anything I could get my hands on. I had to understand the basic principles to see what it is and is not known or possible based on my experiences. Also, having to understand basic principles of military science and, strategy, warfare, including operational psychology, saturation attacks, all of those types of things. Now, we'll discuss those later in later episodes. We'll review the evidence, including thermal imagery, which is crucial in identifying thermal energy disturbances and possible electromagnetic energy attacks, and also piecing together the patterns to understand the psychological effects that work alongside the physiological aspect. This is a complex puzzle, and like I said before, and all the pieces must be examined in order to see the whole picture and to see the truth of what's happening. Now, these incidents in Havana and other U.S. embassies were supposedly caused by directed energy weapons. Now, briefly, let's talk about that. These are military-grade weapons systems designed to use electromagnetic pulsed energies, such as microwaves and infrasound, at levels and intensities that heat a target, be it a human target or electronics or whatever. The heat is superficial and, depending on the frequency and intensity, affects the surface of the skin or material. A prolonged attack to the same areas can eventually cause the heat to spread and go deeper into the skin or matter and start to affect tissue and organs. In my case, these energies target the entire body. Full body saturation with these energies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, non-stop, whether at home, in my car, in the store, asleep, awake, church, alone, in public, constant zapping all over. Painful singeing of the skin, searing, affecting the muscles. Now, you wonder, how is this possible? How can all of this happen and no one notice? How can nobody else see what's happening but the person affected? It sounds crazy. And some people claim we are crazy. Mass psychogenic illness is what they say we suffer from. And I'll show you how it's done and also explain why they try to explain it away as mental illness. And once you see it, you'll understand the malicious, horrifying precision they use to carry out these atrocities. It's important that my story and other victim stories be heard because this affects all of us, not just me and not just other test subjects going through this. This affects all of us. Because if they can get away with this for this long, which in my case has been 3 years, possibly longer, if they can get away with this for this long, with the masses being unaware of what's happening, then how long before they start to use these weapons on a wider population, which includes you and your family and your friends and your children? My experiences may sound unbelievable, like science fiction, but I assure you it's all too real. I hope you will join me and follow along as I work to end this torture for myself and others who may be suffering. Please sign the petition at change.org. The link is change.org/will-to-live. Follow me on Twitter at will-to-live-us. Subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications for alerts when I publish new episodes. In the meantime, keep praying and standing up for human rights. I'm Will, and that's all for now.